Welcome to the 2026 Tourism PAT Resource Pack Mediation. My name is Elsabie Engelbrecht. The purpose of the 2026 Tourism PAT Resource Pack Mediation video is to prepare and assist tourism teachers to mediate the resource pack with their grade 12 learners before the PAT is written. Remember, the mediation of the resource pack must happen before the official dates on which the PAT will be written, that is 20 and 21 May 2026. Teachers must ensure that each learner has a printed copy of the resource pack when the resource pack will be mediated. Learners must also remember to write their names on the resource pack, because this will be given back to them on the day of the official writing of the PAT. Teachers are encouraged to use this mediation video to mediate the resource pack to their learners or make it available to learners once your mediation with them has been completed. Learners can then refer back to it before they actually write the PAT on 20 and 21 May 2026. Let me introduce you to the PAT Resource Pack mediators for today. The four ladies that you see here usually works in the high security area of the Department of Basic Education in Pretoria, where they are developing various documents for DBE. My name is Elsabie Engelbrecht, as I said. I'm Chief Examiner. Another examiner, Ansa Thibaut and Poppy Benny, are on my right, and on my left are Nareshni Moodley. What can you expect in today's outline? I've already done the welcoming and introduction of the PAT mediators. We are now going to discuss every single addenda in the resource pack, and I will end the video with a conclusion and a way forward. So these are the addenda that appears in the resource pack. Addendum A is the fact sheet, which consists of the introduction, the background, the scenario, and the itinerary with a map. Addendum B is about travel planning. Addendum C is about attractions and activities. Addendum D deals with accommodation, meals, and road transport. Addendum E with health and safety. Addendum F with entrepreneurship. Addendum G with sustainability. Addendum H about design, and addendum I is the reflective question. So how should the learners use the resource pack? It's important that you take your learners through this slide so they can see exactly what is expected of them. First of all, very important for them is to start writing their name on the resource pack. You must also give them the opportunity to page through the PAT resource pack to familiarize themselves with the content and make sure that all 50 pages of the resource pack has been printed. Learners must then continue to read the profile fact sheet, which will give them a good overview of the entire PAT. Then they must use the glossary to assist with the meaning of the underlined words. The glossary is found at the end of the resource pack. Each question has an addendum with information that the learners must study before they are answering the questions. The information in each of the addenda will assist the learners in answering the questions. Okay, without further ado, let us introduce the 2026 Tourism PAT. When you look at the picture that is to follow now, it will give you a very good indication of what the topic of this year's PAT is. Okay, so you correctly guessed that it has something to do with the ocean. South Africa is an endless outdoor playground. From scuba diving to kite surfing, hot air ballooning, to windsurfing, ziplining, to paramotoring, there is no shortage of adventures causing adrenaline rush moments. You guessed it correctly. This year's PAT is called Blue Tourism. The slogan for this year's PAT is Sea, Sand and Fun. Let us now look at what learners can expect do in this PAT. So we've already looked at the different addenda. Addendum A is the fact sheet, the very overview of the PAT, consisting of an introduction, background scenario, and itinerary. Addendum B has 2 questions. 1.1 deals with the day-to-day itinerary and 1.2 with flights. Addendum C deals with attractions and activities. Question 2 deals with has a question on attractions and activities. Addendum D has 3 questions, 3.1 accommodation, meals, and 3.3 road transport. Addendum E has 2 questions. 4.1 deals with health and 4.2 with safety. In day 2, learners will have to deal with Addendum F, about entrepreneurship. There are 3 questions, 5.1 eco-glamping, 5.2 entrepreneurship, and 5.3 job opportunities. Addendum G has 2 questions, 6.1 on sustainable beaches and 6.2 on sustainable seafood. Addendum H deals with design. There's only 1 question, message in a bottle. Addendum A is the usual reflective question, My Blue Tourism PAT, where learners in question 8 have to give their reflective paragraph. My co-presenters and I will take you through each of the 9 addenda individually. Addendum A, Introduction. Let us start with Addendum A, which deals with the introduction as part of the fact sheet. As with all other addenda, Addendum A is important as it gives the learners a complete overview of the PAT. Addendum A, the fact sheet, includes introduction, which I will be taking you through, background, scenario, and the itinerary. Blue tourism incorporates coastal and marine tourism. Blue tourism plays a key role in the country's tourism industry, providing opportunities to explore stunning beaches, lively coastal towns, and rich marine ecosystems. South Africa's coastline is highly diverse, featuring 23 marine protected areas across different provinces and 7 national parks. Let's look deeper into coastal tourism. Coastal tourism includes estuaries, coastal dunes, rocky shores, sandy beaches, and cliffs. There are different coastal activities to enjoy, such as nature trails, horse riding on the beach, and turtle tours. Sand and beach activities include paramotoring, ziplining, and paragliding. Coastal heritage and cultural events include local seafood experiences, cultural tourism, and historical sightseeing. These include activities such as visits to lighthouses, aquariums, cycling, and marathons. Now let's learn more about marine tourism. Marine tourism includes coral reefs, rocky reefs, and open ocean experiences. Popular activities include the Marine Big Five Sea Safari, boat-based whale watching, shark cage diving, and watching seals, dolphins, and turtles. Other water-based activities include surfing, scuba diving, and snorkeling. Water sports like yachting, flyboarding, and kite surfing are popular with adventure seekers. Deep-sea fishing involves experiences like big game fishing, for example, blue marlin and yellowfin tuna. Ocean experiences also include cruise tourism, marina, and island tourism. South Africa has the 3rd longest coastline in Africa, stretching approximately 2,798 kilometers. This diverse coastline offers a variety of experiences for tourists looking for adventure and natural beauty. Provinces offering coastal and marine tourism in South Africa include the Northern Cape, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. The country's coastline borders both the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. The eastern coastline has a warm climate with temperatures ranging between 20 degrees Celsius and 25 degrees Celsius, while the western coastline is cooler with average temperatures between 9 degrees Celsius and 14 degrees Celsius. Three of South Africa's beaches received international accolades at the 2024 Beach Atlas Golden Beach Awards. Accolades are awards or recognitions given to tourism businesses or destinations or a person for excellent performance. These beaches are Boulders Beach, Bloubergstrand, and Clifton Beach. Boulders Beach has been ranked second out of 100 beaches. So let's look more and learn more about Boulders Beach. Boulders Beach is famous for its colony of African penguins that attract tourists from around the world. The beach has large granite boulders, which you can see in the background. It's like the rocks that create sheltered swimming areas with calmer and warmer water. It forms part of the Table Mountain National Park, and it's known for its clean and protected natural environment. See how beautiful Table Mountain features in this picture. This is Bloubergstrand, and it offers panoramic views of Table Mountain and the Cape Town coastline. The beach is popular for water sports such as kite surfing, surfing and windsurfing because of the strong winds there almost every day. Big Bay at Bloubergstrand hosts national and international surfing and kite surfing competitions every year. One of our beautiful beaches in South Africa is Clifton Beach. Clifton consists of 4 beaches actually, separated by large granite boulders along the Atlantic seaboard. Clifton's 4th beach has received blue flag status because of its high standards of safety, cleanliness and environmental management. The beaches are popular for white sand, beautiful sunsets and protection from the strong southeasterly wind. Blue Flag Beaches is a status that is given by an organization called WESA. It is an eco-label awarded annually to beaches, marinas, and boat operators that meet high standards for water quality, environmental education, safety, and management. To be awarded this status, beaches must follow very strict rules. In South Africa, 48 beaches, 4 marinas, and 7 sustainable tourism boats have been awarded Blue Flag status. Blue Flag beaches are a major drawcard for tourists and are known as being the best, which is why tourists have come to trust the Blue Flag status and will seek out these beaches and boats wherever they are. More about Blue Flag status later in this presentation. I will now hand over to Ms. Poppy Benny, who will take you through Addendum A that deals with,
which will give you a brief background on the tourists. The tourists in this spat are a group of 4 young friends from Brazil. The group is led by Alfonso da Silva, who is from Sao Paulo. He entered and won a competition, and his prize includes an all-expenses-paid trip to South Africa for himself and 3 friends. The group consists of Alfonso da Silva, Sofia Lima, Pedro Costa, and Isabella Lopez. All 4 tourists are between the ages of 21 and 25 years old, which means they are young adults. This is especially important because it explains their travel preferences. They are described as adventure tourists, meaning they enjoy exciting, active, and sometimes risky activities such as water sports, diving, and outdoor experiences. They are not your typical leisure tourists who prefer relaxation only. They are thrill seekers looking for adrenaline-filled activities. Their prize can only be described as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, which shows that the trip is both special and exclusive, as well as carefully planned. It focuses on blue tourism, meaning coastal and marine tourism in South Africa. The prize includes the following: return economy class flights from Sao Paulo to Cape Town via Johannesburg, 30 nights accommodation with breakfast included, selected meals with dinner on specific days, all transport including airport transfers, Bears bus travel, domestic flights, and a rented vehicle, pre-booked activities and entrance fees, as well as the necessary licenses that is required, for example, deep-sea fishing. This means that most of the major travel costs are covered, allowing the tourist to fully enjoy the experience without worrying about planning or booking. The price excludes certain items. So what is not included are the following items: travel documents, example passports and visas, travel and medical insurance, vaccinations, e-hailing services such as Uber, some of the meals, personal expenses required for shopping or other optional extras. This means the tourists must still plan and budget for these additional costs themselves. This ends the background information required. I now hand over to Ms. Nireshni Mudli to continue.
Hi, my name is Nireshni Mudli, and I'll be taking you through the part of Addendum A that deals with the scenario. The scenario is the setting of the scene or a picture for what the PAT is about. It's like a case study. The scenario is important because the learners will constantly refer back to it when answering questions. The scenario also speaks to the itinerary. Teachers must make sure that the learners understand how to use the scenario in conjunction with the other resources such as the itinerary and the route map. There are underlined words in the scenario. These words correspond to words which are found in the glossary at the end of the resource pack. It is to help learners understand the context of the concepts that they are using during the course of the PAT. There are 4 friends taking this trip. You have already been introduced to them by Poppy when she took you through the background. There are 2 legs to the trip. A leg in this instance refers to a part of the trip. So in essence, there are 2 parts to the trip. Let us now go through leg 1 or part 1 of the trip. The group, also referred to as the Thrill Seekers, leave Brazil on the 28th of December 2026 and travel to Cape Town. They will arrive in Cape Town on the 29th of December 2026. They spend 3 nights in Cape Town. The nights become very important when we start to unpack the accommodation needs, and that is why it is very important for learners to understand exactly how many nights the group will spend in each destination that they visit. Once the group have completed their 3 nights in Cape Town, they travel to Hermanus by the Bears bus. The Bears bus was introduced to learners in grade 11, but it is important that teachers explain how the Bears bus differs from your other modes of road transport, such as your luxury coach liners. The group spend 1 night in Hermanus. They continue their journey to Mossel Bay, where they will spend 2 nights. This is now where their transport option changes because they will use an e-hailing service to take them from Mossel Bay to George Airport. Teachers should explain the difference between e-hailing services and your normal taxi services because some learners may have never been exposed to e-hailing services. The final part of leg 1 of their journey is a domestic flight from George Airport to King Shaka International Airport in KwaZulu-Natal. Let us quickly recap leg 1. Leg 1 will have the group having completed 6 nights of their complete journey, and they would have used 3 different modes of transport. Moving on to the second leg or part 2 of their trip. They will begin this leg when they arrive in Durban. They will not stay in Durban at this point. They will pick up a rented 4x4 vehicle and drive to Ballito, where they will stay for 2 nights. Teachers will need to briefly review reasons for why they could possibly require a 4x4 vehicle for this leg of their journey. Once the group have completed their 2-night stay in Ballito, they will travel to Sodwana Bay for 4 nights. Now this is the highlight of their trip, where they will be visiting Isimangaliso Wetland Park, Maputo National Park. Please take some time to explain the importance of the site and also draw attention to the new name or the name change of the site, as the older resources that the learners may have been exposed to would have referred to the site as just being the Isimangaliso Wetland Park. The final part of their trip to South Africa is their return to Durban, where they will stay for one night before heading back home on the 11th of January 2027. Hopefully, this should give learners a clearer idea of how this trip will pan out. I would like to now hand you over to Ansa Thibault, who will take you through the itinerary as well as the route map.
Hi, I'm Ansa Thibault. I will be taking you through the part of Addendum A that deals with the itinerary. The itinerary is very important in understanding the day-to-day activities, accommodation and transport of the trip that the 4 Brazilian friends will do in South Africa. The itinerary must be used in conjunction with the background information and the scenario. It will also be very helpful in answering questions based on the activities, attractions, and accommodation mentioned in the resource pack. The first leg of the trip. They are going to arrive from Brazil in South Africa at Cape Town International Airport on the 29th of December 2026. Day 2 and Day 3, the 30th and the 31st of December, the last 2 days of this year, will be spent in Cape Town and surroundings. On Day 4, which will then be the 1st of January 2027, New Year's Day, they will travel to the coastal town of Hermanus, and on Day 5, they will travel from Hermanus to Mossel Bay. Day 6 will be spent in Mossel Bay, and on Day 7, they travel then from Mossel Bay to George, which will now be the end of their road transport that they used in the Western Cape. From George, they will fly to King Shaka International Airport in Durban. Now we start the second leg of the trip. From Durban, they will travel again by road transport now to Ballito. Day 8 will be spent in Ballito, and on Day 9, they will travel more north along the KwaZulu-Natal coast to Sudwana Bay. Sudwana Bay promises to be the highlight of the trip. They will enjoy the beauty and the unique activities and attractions that Sudwana Bay offers on Day 10, 11 and 12. On Day 13, they will now travel back to Durban, and on Day 14, they will depart via Johannesburg back to Brazil. The route map of the trip. The map above shows the whole trip and the location of all the cities and towns mentioned already. Note the inbound flight from Brazil to Cape Town. The next town shown is then Hermanus, followed by Mossel Bay and George. Again, I'm going to repeat that. This is the end of road transport used in the Western Cape. From George, they will take a small aeroplane to Durban, and then the trip continues to Ballito and Sudwana Bay. After the days that the friends will spend in Sudwana Bay, they will start the return trip to Durban. Note the arrows now showing in the opposite direction. Then we have an aeroplane at Durban that indicates the domestic flight that they are going to take to Johannesburg. From OR Tambo International Airport, they will use an outbound international flight to Brazil. The legend at the bottom of the map shows very clearly which symbols are used to differentiate between air transport and road transport. I will now hand over to Mrs. Elsabie Engelbrecht, who will take you through Addendum B.
Hi, this is Elsabie Engelbrecht again, and I'm taking you through Addendum B, which deals with travel planning. Travel planning is important because it helps tourists to have a safe, organized, and enjoyable trip. Good planning ensures that flights, accommodation, transport, and activities are arranged in advance. For the 4 friends from Brazil, a South African travel agent planned all the details of their 14-day adventure trip to make their journey from Sao Paulo, Cape Town smooth and stress-free. This is just a reminder of who the travelers from Brazil are. Our 4 friends are thrill seekers, adventure seekers, and they're all between the ages of 20 and 25. Alfonso on the very left is the guy who won the trip, and he invited 3 of his best friends with him. As you can see, Sophia sits right next to Alfonso, and then Pedro and Isabella are on the far left. Teachers must spend enough time on the interpretation of the day-to-day itinerary, which can be very intimidating for some learners. The suggestion is to assist learners to get a good overview of the trip using this particular slide. And this can be done by focusing the learner's attention to elements on the itinerary, such as the headings. Starting with day 1, point out that the trip is 14 days long, from the arrival right to the departure. Look at the dates and focus their attention on when are they actually leaving Sao Paulo in Brazil and when are they returning. 29 December 2026, it's towards the end of this year, and they will be returning early in January to Sao Paulo. The traveling from and arriving at is important. For each of the days mentioned in this day-to-day itinerary, point out that they're flying from Sao Paulo to Cape Town when they originally arrive in South Africa, and take them down from day 1 to day 14 to show them exactly where each and every day will be spent. Then the next heading is transport. Let the learners look at the different types of transport that is used during this whole trip. And then lastly, the main activities for the day. So let them also look at where the highlights of the trip will be, and that is the deep sea fishing on day 12. Now break the itinerary into digestible parts so that it's easier for them to interpret the day-by-day activities and all the other information. So for the purpose of this presentation, I've broken down the day-by-day itineraries into days 1 to 4, thereafter 5 to 8, and thereafter day 9 to day 13. So let's look at day 1 to 4. This is from 29 December to 1st of January. And there's no particular reason why I chose 4 days. It's just that it's easier. So take the learners again through each of the days so they look at all the different elements of days 1 to 4. This is followed by day 5 to 8. Over here you can see that is between the 2nd of January and the 5th of January, and all the different places they're going to and all the activities and the transport again. This is followed by days 9 to 13, and then the final day, day 14, is fitted onto this page again. Again, you need to take them through each of the days from day 9 to day 13. Look at the dates, the destinations that they are going to travel to, the different types of transport. In this case, they're only using 4x4 vehicles, and then the different activities for the day, including the highlight of their trip, the deep sea fishing on day 12. On day 14, you can just point out that they are in Durban at the moment, and they have to go back to Johannesburg for the international flight to Sao Paulo, and how they must hand back their 4x4 vehicles in Durban and then take a domestic flight from Durban back to Johannesburg for their transatlantic flight back to Sao Paulo in Brazil. This map will assist learners to get an overview of the international and domestic flights. Show the learners exactly the direction of travel from Sao Paulo right up to Johannesburg, where they will take a connecting flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town. This is just the arrival flight, so they can understand what is meant by a transatlantic flight. You can see there's the South African Airways aircraft, and it's flying across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, also in the white text box, make sure the learners take note of the route. It's clearly indicated with the blue line and the arrows. The type of flight, it's a transatlantic flight. The distances that they have to travel from Sao Paulo to Johannesburg, and again, then the domestic flight. They don't give the distances here, but they must show the flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town, and then the airlines that is going to be used, which is South African Airways and Springjet. A little bit more about Springjet a little later. Air travel information in the pack often makes reference to airport codes. So at the bottom of this slide, you will see the focus of the airport codes. So focus the learners' attention to the 5 airport codes for the airports that are mentioned in the pack. So let us look at the flights in more detail. Focus your learners' attention on the fact that this slide shows the departing flight at the top, the return flight at the bottom, and in between the two is a breakdown with more detail on how the flights are going to transpire. Okay, so let us start with the departing flights. So first of all, the date, 28 December 2026, and then the learners must read across, starting on the left-hand block where it gives you the time of departure and also the time of arrival. The final destination is Cape Town. Point out to learners the +1, which is highlighted in pink there, and that will always indicate that the time indicated there is the next day. So I went and I looked. The 28th of December is on a Monday. So they will depart on 28 December on the Monday at 19:05, but they will only arrive in Cape Town on the Tuesday at 17:30. That is what the +1 means here. We're still in the first block. The airlines they are going to use is South African Airways, and importantly here, operated by Springjet. Now let's just stand still here so learners can understand where does Springjet fit into this whole traveling pattern. So South African Airways sometimes needs extra aircraft when its own planes are being serviced or repaired. To keep flights operating on schedule, SAA works together with Highfly and its sister company Springjet South Africa. Now, learners don't have to know more about these companies, just why they are using, SAA are using Springjet. This now means that Springjet supplies the aircraft, the pilots, the cabin crew, maintenance and insurance, while South African Airways sells the tickets and manages the flight schedule. SAA uses these aircraft mainly during times when some of its own aircraft are unavailable because of scheduled maintenance. This helps SAA to continue operating flights without cancelling routes. That is what the role of Springjet is here. So the crew will be probably Portuguese speaking because Springjet and Highfly are Portuguese companies, but they help SAA where they need aircraft. So let's go to the next block, which gives you the duration of that entire flight. It's 17 hours and 25 minutes from the departure from Sao Paulo at Guarulhos Airport to Cape Town. Now, there's one stopover, which means they go from Sao Paulo and they land in Johannesburg. Passengers must leave the aircraft, go back into the OR Tambo terminal and wait there for 6 hours and 10 minutes in Johannesburg before they can board their flight to Cape Town. So that is what a layover indicates here, is that waiting time inside the airport terminal. The last block gives the learners the price of a flight ticket, and that is now from Sao Paulo to Cape Town. The price is 29,441 Rand, and that is per person, and that is for a return trip fare. So let's go to the middle block here, where we give more information about the actual flight. Now you will see the name of that international airport in Sao Paulo is really difficult to pronounce for a person who cannot speak Portuguese. So I put it there on the right hand in the green block, Guarulhos. Guarulhos International Airport in Sao Paulo. So as we said, it's South African Airways with code sharing by Springjet. It's an economy class ticket. The aircraft is the Airbus A330, and there's even the flight number there is A223. The travel time is 9 hours. It's an overnight flight, transatlantic flight. So 9:05 the next morning. Can you see there's a +1 again, indicated it's Tuesday. Remember they left on Monday. OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg, where they have that layover that we spoke about, the 6 hours and 10 minutes. They will board the domestic flight at 15:15, again on the Tuesday. Remember, it's the next day from when they departed Sao Paulo, so it's still on the Tuesday. They will board a local flight, and the travel time from Johannesburg to Cape Town is around 2 hours and 15 minutes. They will arrive in Cape Town still on the Tuesday, 17:30 at Cape Town International Airport. And then right after the entire trip, they will return on the 14th day, and that will be the 11th of January 2027. So they will need to, as I said before, from Durban go back to Johannesburg so they can catch their flight back to Sao Paulo. This time, the PAT talks about South African Airways. It doesn't mention Springjet again, so it's probably one of South African Airways' own aircraft. The flight duration, look how that differs, is 24 hours and 50 minutes. It's Durban-Johannesburg, which are is a domestic flight, and from Johannesburg to Guarulhos International Airport in Sao Paulo. There's one stop, a layover again in Johannesburg, so they go from Durban to Johannesburg. There they have a layover of 12 hours 45 minutes. In other words, they have to wait in the international terminal in OR Tambo International Airport for 12 hours and 45 minutes before they can board their flight from Johannesburg back to Sao Paulo. Just a little bit more about the aircraft, the Airbus A330. This is purely for interest's sake, so learners just will know more. The aircraft is called the Airbus A330, and the typical Airbus A330 usually carries about 250 to 300 passengers. The cockpit crew consists of 2 pilots, in other words, a captain and 1 first officer, and the cabin crew is usually between 8 and 12 cabin attendants. This means that the aircraft can have a total of about 260 to 314 passengers on board. That's something interesting. I will now hand over to Ms. Nareshni.
Hi, my name is Nareshni Murli, and I'll be taking you through Addendum C, which deals with the attractions and activities. The group will be visiting South Africa in December during our summer season. They also enjoy outdoor activities with a slight element of adrenaline needed. Their choice of host destinations allow for this need, offering a diversity of experiences from the cool waters of the Atlantic Ocean on the west coast of South Africa to the warm waters of the Indian Ocean on the east coast of South Africa. The group have also chosen to enjoy a range of attractions and activities. Remember, an attraction is something that one generally goes to see, while activities are things that they will actually participate in. Sometimes an attraction is also the activity. Attractions also include special events, and this group will be very lucky to be spectators at the famous 6-gun Trans-Siguilus rubber duck race this year. The resource pack gives you a brief overview of the attractions and activities that the group will be enjoying. Each one shows you a risk meter. The risk meter gives the group an idea of the element of risk involved in each activity, with some offering no risk at all, while others being very risky, meaning the ones that will give them a true adrenaline rush. So let us now go and look in Cape Town, where they will be spending 3 nights. Here, they will visit Cape Point. This is a high, narrow point of land which projects over the ocean. It is located in the southwestern tip of Africa in the Table Mountain National Park. This park is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site and is famous for its fynbos vegetation. The group have the chance to also have a ride in the Oni funicular, which is a cliff railway line, the only one in Africa. It is referred to as the Flying Dutchman funicular because it takes just 3 minutes to transport tourists over 585 meters. Legend says that it was named after a ghost ship. Going up to Cape Mountain is free, but it's really, really worth it because you can also get a view of both the Indian and Atlantic Oceans. One needs a ticket to ride the funicular if you are 6 years or older. The group will also be doing some paramotoring in Blaubergstrand while they are in Cape Town. This is a very popular activity for people who want to feel like a bird in the sky. The group will have to experience this activity with a trained, licensed instructor. The paramotor looks like a kite with a seat. It has a motor attached to it, and this activity must be booked with the paragliding school. Payment is required for the activity as well as the safety gear. Although this is a weather-dependent activity, it gives one an amazing view of Table Mountain and the Atlantic coastline. Mountain is a must-see attraction for the most inbound tourists visiting South Africa. The actual mountain is a flat-topped mountain which forms part of the new 7 Wonders of Nature. Table Mountain National Park is also part of the UNESCO-inscribed Cape Floral Region Protected Areas World Heritage Site. Now, if that is not enough to attract tourists, there are also the range of activities, including a ride up the cable car, hiking, mountain biking, and for the more adventurous, paragliding and abseiling. Tickets to go up Table Mountain in the cable car range from 225 rands to about 450 rands. But if you are South African and it's your birthday month, you can actually go up the cable car for free. The group are going to be very fortunate to be able to attend the 6-gun Trans-Sagalis rubber duck race. A rubber duck is an inflatable boat designed to move quickly through rough water. This race is considered the world's toughest rubber duck challenge. It takes place over 4 days and it covers about 700 kilometers in open water. Entry fees and safety gear are required by participants, while it is free for spectators. The spectator area does, however, become very crowded and it can become very hot, so the group will need to dress comfortably and have things like sunscreen to keep them comfortable. Now time for the group to move on to Hermanus after a 3-night stay in Cape Town. The group have booked the Marine Big 5 Sea Safari while they are staying in Hermanus. When tourists hear the term Big 5 or safari, they immediately think of the Big 5 land-based animals. This group, who have a special interest and a love for the ocean, decided to book a trip on the Marine Big 5 Sea Safari while in Hermanus. It is a guided safari. The group can expect to see and come up close and personal with the Marine Big 5, which include the southern right whale, dolphins, Cape fur seals, African penguins, and great white sharks. Pre-booking for this safari is essential. This group have completed their 1 night in Hermanus. They make their way to Mossel Bay. The group will have their hearts pumping as their spirit of adventure is satisfied once more when they get to experience the longest over-the-ocean zipline. A zip line is where a person wears a harness. A harness is like an attachment to a steel cable from which they glide from a very high point to a very low point, generally on land, but this time they get to do it over an open ocean. They will zip line over 1.1 kilometers, 90 meters above the ocean, with an average speed of 80 kilometers per hour. This is definitely an activity worth getting wet for. Mossel Bay just keeps offering the group high-risk adventure activities. They have booked a guided shark cage tour. Each person, who will be dressed in a wetsuit, enters a cage which is then submerged or lowered deep down into the ocean in an area where sharks swim. They will experience coming into close contact with sharks who swim around the cage and sometimes even move the cage around. This activity is definitely not for the faint-hearted. Once they have completed their trip to Mossel Bay, the group move on to Ballito. Now in Ballito, they start off with flyboarding. Although this activity looks like a lot of fun and it looks like it is easy, it is actually an extreme water sport that requires participants to be experienced and to wear safety gear. Flyboarding is where the rider stands on a board very much like a skateboard, which is connected to a long hose. This hose is moved around very, very vigorously by a jet ski. The rider is pushed high up into the air as the jet ski moves at a very fast pace. Some people choose to do the knee boarding, which is the same except that they are on their knees instead of standing up. While in Ballito, the group will engage in some surfing. Surfing in summer months is very popular and it is enjoyed by many who have experience in the sport. They will use a surfboard to ride the high waves. The challenge is to remain steady on the surfboard and not fall off. They may also engage in jet skiing. Jet skiing is using a water-based device that's called a jet ski. It is almost like a motorbike without wheels on water. The thrill of jet skiing is the high-speed movement through the ocean. Here again, participants need to be experienced and when the group move on to Sodwana Bay, they tone down a little bit on the adventure and they've decided to get involved in a very unique activity. This activity, which is turtle nesting, takes place between November and March each year. Turtle nesting is where the water-based turtles come to the shore of the ocean to lay their eggs. This is a guided tour that takes place in the evenings only. One will have a chance to come into contact with both loggerhead and leatherback turtles. Bay is known for its beautiful coral reefs, which look like hard flowers. Coral reefs are also areas where one can view a variety of marine ecosystems, including fish and other sea animals. Divers wear a mask attached to an oxygen device in order to dive deeply into the coral reef areas of the ocean in order to experience this natural beauty. They will then go from below the ocean to above the ocean. Guided paid deep sea fishing is a popular activity for lovers of marine life. Anglers or fishermen go deep into the ocean and fish using fishing rods from the safety of a boat. Deep sea fishing offers the angler opportunities to catch big game fish, which are huge in size. Most anglers involved in deep sea fishing do it as a sport and therefore they release the fish back into the ocean. They enjoy the challenge of succeeding in catching the fish. So all in all, you can see that the group will be enjoying a diversity of attractions and activities. Now the teachers need to make sure to explain and describe each activity and attraction. Learners need to also use the risk meter to assess the level of risk each activity imposes on the participants. I would like to now hand you over to Ansa Thibault, who will be taking you through Addendum D.
Hi, I am Ansa Thibault and I will be taking you through Addendum D that deals with accommodation, meals and road transport. Resource 3.1 covers accommodation, which is a very important aspect of any holiday and allows for a good, enjoyable experience. 6 different accommodation establishments will be discussed in no particular order. Each establishment will be discussed by referring to its location, uniqueness, and offerings. Whale Rock Luxury Lodge and Villa is situated in Hermanus in the beautiful Western Cape Province. Pay attention to the neatness and beautiful landscaping of this establishment. Whale Rock Luxury Lodge and Villa makes every person feel welcome. The guests can enjoy rooms with a garden view, a sea view, or suites facing the pool. They offer also a flat-screen TV in the room with live streaming facilities and complimentary Wi-Fi. I want to remind you about the underlined words that you see in the passages and the extracts throughout the resource pack, and they are explained in the glossary, which can be found in the last pages of the resource pack. The Oyster Box Hotel is very unique and exclusive. It is situated in Umhlanga Rocks in KwaZulu-Natal. The Umhlanga Lighthouse is definitely unique and is associated with this hotel. The Oyster Box is very popular in South Africa because of its luxury offerings and hospitality. Some of the offerings include a 24-hour gym and the oceanfront swimming pool next to the lighthouse. A very unique facility is the 24-seater cinema at the hotel. From one unique accommodation to the next. The Santos Express Train Lodge in Mossel Bay in the Western Cape is definitely unique. And as the picture shows very clearly, the accommodation is the train. The train is stationary, meaning it is not in use for transport purposes anymore and is now used for accommodation. Note the close proximity from the beach, it is like 30 meters. Guests can even book a suite with a private pool on this train. On the right side is a photo of the on-site restaurant called the Fork and Train Restaurant. The Granddaddy Boutique Hotel is unique because it offers accommodation on the rooftop of the building, and the accommodation is the Airstream trailers. There are 7 of these trailers available for accommodation. In the second paragraph, that will be on the left-hand side, it is mentioned that they are individually designed and themed, which is the reason why it is a boutique hotel. 4-star accommodation is offered with a deck or a patio and a queen-size bed in each trailer. Sudwana Bay Eco Glamping Retreat. Sudwana Bay should mark the highlight of the holiday with the longest stay in this area. Although the accommodation uses tents, it is still in the luxury of double beds, ensuite bathrooms, and private walkways. Note the use of solar power, which linked to the name Eco Glamping. La Montagne Hotel is a 3-star hotel in Ballito along the KwaZulu-Natal coast. La Montagne offers different types of rooms, including studios and apartments, all facing the ocean, and it has a balcony. It also offers a spa and a wellness center with a games room. On the picture above, the jacuzzi can be seen. This brings me then to the end of the discussion on accommodation. A holiday without good food is not a good holiday. The Brazilian friends will be able to enjoy unique restaurants which offers good food. The Vettemossel Seafood Restaurant is in Groot Brakrivier in the Western Cape, and it is the first of 2 unique restaurants that will be discussed. The Vettermossel offers a very informal, relaxed, fun-filled experience, barefoot eating at its best. A bonfire will keep the guests company in the evening. And the speciality of this restaurant is definitely seafood. The Vettermossel takes it one step further in the correct direction towards sustainability. This restaurant only serves seafood from the Sassy Green list, which is the best choice to buy because it was sustainably sourced and it will not put any species in danger. But there is more to their sustainability efforts than only Sassy Green choices. There are a list of bullets there with information on their efforts in making our world a better place. The Roma Revolving Restaurant is in Durban and it is the second unique restaurant under discussion. It is the only revolving restaurant in the Southern Hemisphere and one of only 3 revolving restaurants in the world. In the photos, you can see the beautiful entrance to the restaurant on the left and a view of Durban Harbour, which can be seen from the restaurant on the 32nd floor of the building. Please note the beautiful artwork on the ceiling of this restaurant. I will continue now to road transport. The Bassbus will be used from Cape Town to Hermanus, and then on day 5 they will continue from Hermanus to Mossel Bay with the Bassbus. The Bassbus is unique because the friends can hop on at an accommodation and hop off and on along the route until they hop off at another accommodation establishment. A few advantages of using the Bassbus are listed. It is safe and convenient, new friends can be met, and the best of all, it is a stress-free trip for the passenger. This map shows the part of the trip for which the Bassbus will be used. Follow the arrows from Cape Town, which is where they are going to have accommodation, Hermanus, and then to Mossel Bay. You will also see that Kleinmond is marked out there, as well as Swellendam. I wonder what they are going to do there. The accommodation is very clearly indicated on this map. Consult the legend for the rest of the symbols. Now we come to the Bassbus schedule for day 4 and 5. The schedule gives more information on what happens at each of the towns visited between Cape Town, Hermanus, and then Mossel Bay. You can see they are going to hop off for a quick breakfast in Kleinmond, and on day 5 they are going to hop off at Swellendam for lunch. I will now hand over to Ms. Poppy Benny, who will take you through Addendum E.
Health in tourism refers to how tourists take care of their physical well-being while traveling and participating in activities. In this aspect, the 4 friends are involved in high-energy outdoor activities, which means that they are exposed to risks such as sun exposure, injuries, dehydration, and fatigue. This resource highlights important health practices that the tourist should follow. As tourists will spend a lot of time outdoors doing various activities, they must do the following. Use sunscreen, wear sun hats and sunglasses, and avoid being out in the sun during peak hours. This will prevent sunburn and dehydration. Staying hydrated simply means that your body has enough water to function properly. Tourists need to drink enough water, especially in hot coastal areas. Tourists must avoid consuming alcohol before or during activities, as this reduces the risk of poor judgment, accidents, and injuries. Wearing proper clothing and footwear is equally important. Thus, wearing suitable shoes for walking or hiking or any other outdoor activity is very important. Tourists should wear protective gear for activities that are in water, for example, wetsuits and life vests, etc., as this will prevent injuries and minimize accidents. The use of diving equipment is very important. For activities like scuba diving, etc., equipment must be checked before use and all instructions or rules must be followed. This will ensure underwater safety for each tourist. Being medically prepared means that tourists need to carry basic medication and know where to get help if required. This will ensure a quick response in the case of injury or illness. Tourists must stay alert in public places, and where possible, they need to keep valuables safe and avoid displaying it, especially expensive items. This will prevent a loss of important personal belongings and reduce the possibility of crime. Being aware of your surroundings, following rules and warning signs are equally important. For example, following no entry signs or slippery floor signs are vital to ensure safety. Tourists need to stay in designated areas and in designated pathways and need to know how to access and where to access police services should it be required. This beach safety guide explains how to stay safe and healthy when visiting the beach. It focuses on three main aspects. Firstly, how to protect yourself from sun exposure. The sun can be very strong, especially at the beach. It is therefore necessary to use sunscreen, preferably an SPF 30 and higher. Wear a hat, sunglasses, and light clothing to cover and protect your body. Try to stay in the shade between 1100 hours to 1500 hours when the sun is at its peak. Too much of sun can cause sunburn, dehydration, and even long-term skin damage. Secondly, prevent dehydration. Drink water often, even if you are not thirsty. Avoid sugary drinks or alcohol because they can make dehydration worse. Look out for signs such as a dry mouth, dizziness, and tiredness. This will be signs of dehydration. And dehydration can make you feel weak and sick and can be dangerous if ignored. Thirdly, stay safe and prevent injuries. The beach can be fun, but it can also be risky if you are not careful. Swim only in areas that are designated to be safe. Listen and obey lifeguards' instructions. Pay attention to safety flags. A red flag, for example, means that an area is not safe and you may not swim there. Wear light protective gear for activities like surfing. All these rules are important as it helps prevent accidents and keeps you safe in the water. Finally, a safe beach day is a fun beach day. I will now hand over to Ansa Thibaut, who will take you through Addendum F.
Hi, I am Ansa Thibaut. I will be taking you through Addendum F that deals with entrepreneurship. The Sudwana Bay Eco Glamping Retreat will be used as example. Firstly, I will explain what eco glamping is. Secondly, what an entrepreneur is. And then the discussion will end with job opportunities at the Sudwana Bay Eco Glamping Retreat. Eco glamping. The word eco is very important. It refers to caring about the natural and the cultural environment. Glamping refers to glamorous camping. Three types of camping are mentioned. The first one is tent camping, where you bring your own gear, you pitch the tent, and provide everything for yourself. Glamping is more luxury and modern than tent camping. Then eco-glamping is glamping without any negative impact on the environment. Two tables are given. That makes a comparison between tent camping and eco-glamping. Reference is made to accommodation, comfort, camp setup, and then the target market. I'm going to move over now to entrepreneurship in the next discussion. Personal characteristics and skills are needed to be a successful entrepreneur. These personal characteristics and skills are shown in the infographic. An entrepreneur is a person who sees an opportunity in the business market and then start a business. This person knows very well that he or she is taking a risk of failure and losing the money poured into the business. The Sudwana Bay Eco Glamping Retreat is expanding its services, and it would like to hire passionate nature lovers, which link then with the Eco Glamping Retreat. What positions are available? They have positions as a receptionist, for housekeeping, maintenance, eco tour guides, kitchen and catering staff, and an on-site manager. What do they offer? On-site training in eco-tourism and sustainability, competitive salaries, and on-site accommodation for the staff. Thank you. I will hand over now to Ms. Poppy Benny, who will take you through Addendum G.
Sustainability in tourism means using natural resources in a way that protects the environment for future generations, while still allowing the tourist to enjoy the destination. In this aspect, sustainability of the coastal environment is explained through the concept of blue flag beaches. Did you know a blue flag beach is a beach that has received an international award for meeting high standards in the following aspects: cleanliness, safety, environmental management, and available facilities. In order for a beach to be granted blue flag status, it has to meet the following criteria or standards. Criteria 5, which refers to the water quality at the beach. Criteria 6, which refers to environmental education and information. Criteria 7, which is on safety and services. And criteria 15 on environmental management. The 4 main criteria or standards are explained as follows. Criteria 5 on water quality. The water must be clean and regularly tested. There must be no pollution, for example, no sewage, oil, or chemical spills in the water. This will ensure a healthy environment for swimming and marine life. Criteria 6. Environmental education and information. Information boards must be available, and tourists must have access to information about environmental protection and marine life. There should also be at least 5 educational activities offered at the beach. All of the above criteria will enhance awareness and responsible tourist behavior. Criteria 7. Safety and services. Lifeguards or safety equipment must be available. First aid and emergency plans must be in place. Facilities such as toilets and drinking water must also be provided. All these services will ensure that tourists are safe and comfortable during their visit to the beach. Criteria 15. Environmental management. Beaches must be kept clean. Waste and recycling bins must be available. Natural areas must be protected. Sustainable transport such as walking or cycling must be encouraged. The above actions will then ensure the safety and protection of the natural environment. Sustainable seafood. Sustainable seafood refers to choosing fish or seafood that are caught in a way that does not harm the environment or threaten future fish populations. In South Africa, this is guided by SASSI, which is short for South African Sustainable Seafood Initiative. SASSI helps tourists and consumers make responsible seafood choices. SASSI uses a color-coded system similar to a traffic light system, where, for example, green is the best choice for seafood. The green category simply means that seafood is sustainably sourced and the fishing methods that are used to catch the fish are not harmful to the environment or future fish populations. Tourists are highly recommended to choose this option. The orange category means you need to think twice, as there are some concerns about sustainability. This seafood might be overfished or vulnerable or caught in a harmful way, and tourists should be very careful when choosing this option and therefore must limit their consumption of fish on this category. The category of red simply means do not buy. In other words, this species of seafood is exploited or endangered, and tourists are advised to avoid it completely. This species is illegal to buy or sell. This brings to an end sustainability. I will now hand over to Ms. Elsabie Engelbrecht, who will take you through Addendum H.
Hi, this is Elsabie Engelbrecht again, and I'm going to take you through Addendum H, which deals with design. For many years, people have thrown bottles with messages into the ocean for different reasons. At that time, there were no modern communication methods such as cell phones, satellite phones, or the internet. People have sent out messages in a bottle as a way to communicate when no other option was available. Sailors who were lost at sea, cast away stranded on islands, or explorers crossing unknown waters sometimes placed notes into bottles and let the ocean currents carry them away. These bottles often contained cries for help, records of journeys, or even personal secrets. Some messages were discovered days later, while others washed up on beaches many years or even decades afterwards, carrying stories across time and distance. This is the creative question in the PAT. And learners will be expected to use the template, which is in the middle of this picture here, to guide them as to what is expected from them. So the template will require learners to draw something, and they have to write a message. So they have to do different drawings on A4 size pages, and please encourage learners to use the full size of the A4 page to do their drawings. So each drawing that they have to do must be on a separate page, and it must come with its own message. So each page will contain a drawing plus a message. The learners do not have to use the scroll paper like in the template to write their messages. They can be creative and they can make their paper look the way they like. And the messages may not exceed, that means be longer than 70 words. And encourage the learners to be colourful and creative. And that is, unfortunately, as much as I can say about this particular question. Please make sure that you consult the PAT teacher guidelines for some direction in terms of the stationery that each learner will be required to use with this question in the PAT. I will now hand back to Ms. Nareshni Moodley so she can take us through the last addendum, and that is addendum I, the reflection, and she will also talk about the glossary.
It's now time for me to take you through Addendum I, which is the reflective paragraph. This is the last question in the PAT. Although the learners may be very tired at this point, please stress to them how important it is for them to complete this question properly. The reflection allows for the learner to give an overview of their experience in engaging with the PAT over the 2 days. Explain to them that self-reflection means introspection, where they must express their feelings about the PAT honestly. There is no right or wrong answer as long as they provide good reasons for their thoughts. It must be stressed that their answers need to be comprehensive and motivated well. They must avoid just giving us one line or a simple yes or no to the question. They must answer each aspect of this question thoroughly in order to score the maximum mark. They will need to complete 4 reflective paragraphs, which must be answered in full sentences. Encourage them to earn good marks in this question. Many learners will refer to the glossary as a dictionary, Here, learners will find words from both the Day 1 and Day 2 question paper as well as the resource pack. The words in the glossary have all been underlined in the documents that the learners would have engaged with over the 2 days within which they completed their PAT. The aim of the glossary is to make it easier for the learners to understand the concepts and the context within which it is used in the PAT. During the mediation process, please stress to learners the importance of constantly referring back to and using the glossary. It will certainly make their understanding of the questions and the resources easier. I would like to now hand you over back to Mrs. Elsabie Engelbrecht, who will take you through the conclusion of this PAT mediation.
In preparation for the 2026 PAT, the tourism teachers must, number 1, study the 2026 PAT teacher guidelines. Number 2, study the DBE revised exam instruction 11 of 2026, dated 24 April 2026. Mediate the PAT teacher guidelines, section C, with learners before the PAT is written on 20 and 21 May. Please note, only section C of the PAT teacher guidelines must be mediated with the learners. And then lastly, number 4, mediate the resource pack with learners before the PAT is written on 20 and 21 May 2026. Please note that teachers are allowed to use this video or make it available to the learners after they've mediated the resource pack with their learners. The learners will then be able to use this video before the PAT is written to maybe listen to it again or watch it again. As we come to the end of this mediation session, we would like to wish all tourism teachers across South Africa everything of the best with the mediation process over the next few days. Your guidance and support play an important role in helping learners prepare confidently for the PAT. To all our matric learners, we wish you success as you complete the 2026 Tourism PAT on 20 and 21st of May. Work carefully, think creatively, and enjoy exploring the exciting Blue Tourism theme. A special word of thanks goes to the PAT development team, myself, Elsabie Engelbrecht, Ansa Thibaut, Poppy Benny, and Nireshni Moodley, for the time, the creativity, and hard work invested in developing this PAT. It is no easy task. We truly hope that both teachers and learners will enjoy the Blue Tourism theme and the learning journey it offers. We also extend our sincere appreciation to the Department of Basic Education internal moderators, Jacques Ockhuys and Erika Ferreira, and the Umalusi moderators, Dr. Ludwig Punt and Mr. Rodney Johnson, for their valuable quality assurance and support throughout the process. Thank you for your commitment to tourism education. Safe travels on this PAT journey, and may your 2026 Tourism PAT experience be a successful and memorable one. Goodbye and all of the best.